Ladies and gentlemen, happy Wednesday. It is April already. What in the world? Some of you guys are like, who is this guy? Why did my podcast go to him? But today we are having on the Bearded Tog podcast, Karla Mason. No relationship to me other than she is my sister from another mister. She is an incredible boudoir photographer based out of Virginia, and she is just awesome. I love that it's not just images, but she wants to make people feel amazing, wants people to feel empowered, and wants to turn, she says this in her Instagram bio, and I love it. She wants to turn 10s into 20s or make 10s feel like 20s. It's so cool. I love that initiative. I love making people feel good, and she is just incredible. We talk for a long time in this episode, so if you are into boudoir or just into in-person sales, she's a baller at both, and she's also a mom, so she knows exactly what y'all are going through. I know we have a lot of ladies that listen, and so I would love for you to listen to Karla. She's so good. I let her talk basically the entire time, and we even talk about my first boudoir experience. Not me doing it. I wasn't the subject. That would be really weird, but or at least for me it would be. Anyway, we're rambling. Without any further ado, here is Karla Mason. Karla, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you on it. It's I think it's the first time we've had another Mason on the podcast, and that's pretty incredible.
I know. That was a lot of fun when we found each other on Instagram.
Yeah. So it was so weird. I was trying to think of it today, and I'm pretty sure, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure I was doing some like SEO research, like a dork that I am, and I was looking up Mason photography and like who showed up for it, and I think I saw like Virginia photographer or something, and I was like, oh, is she close? And like dove down, and I was like, oh, she has an Instagram. Oh, she like, sometimes you find stuff and it just looks like people haven't worked for like 5 years, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing's happening here. And I found your stuff, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And you do boudoir, and it's really, really good. And you're really fun and active on Instagram stories, so I'm a big fan of that. And I was like, hey, just saying hi from another Mason.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I just love social media in general. So it's really fun when you can meet people that way, and eventually meet in person or workshops or things like that. So I just kind of love this whole social media era that we're in, because I'm really big on it. So I love finding other photographers that way too.
That's awesome. That's probably like, I want to say this is the first time, maybe this year at least, that I've heard somebody say they love social media, but it's true. Like it's, I don't know. Yeah, we always talk about it like, oh, it could, you could spend more time doing something else. You're not looking at your phone. But if you use it intentionally the way that you do, and I feel like I do most of the time, I get like half my clients from Instagram. So, I mean,
oh yeah. Yeah. I think we're lucky in that these platforms, that we use are free. So, obviously when having your own business or starting your own business, a lot of things cost money. So being able to take advantage of these free platforms, is so incredible for small businesses. And I take full advantage of that because I do not take it for granted for 1 second. So when people say, how are you always on Instagram stories, or how are you always doing this? How do you make time? I'm like, well, I make time because it's available for me. And I am all about free and cheap. And if it's free and cheap for me, I am all over it.
Right, 100%. It's like back in the day, if somebody said, hey, you can have a free billboard, you just have to kind of help people find it, you'd be like, oh, yeah, we can definitely work on that and make it part of your business. So I love that. That's super cool. So tell me a little bit about you, how you got your start. I'm curious, have you always shot boudoir, and tell us like what you're doing now, and what's your favorite thing to do right now?
Well, I have only been shooting boudoir for 3 years now, but I've been doing photography kind of as a hobby and a business for about 6 years now. So obviously, like most people, or maybe most moms, I just got a really nice camera to start taking photos of my kids. I had a little point and shoot that I had, but all of my photos kept coming out blurry. So I decided to buy my first DSLR when I was living in Hawaii. And then just kind of took photos and edited on like, what was it called? Like PicMonkey or something like that. Some like free editing software. And And people were just messaging me like, hey, I like your photos. I like the way that you edit, even though it was terrible now that I look back on it. But it just kind of got the ball rolling. Like, hey, can you take family photos for us, maternity photos? And I kind of just dove into it that way and just really started loving it, just learning more about it, learning about my camera. So I used to shoot everything until a friend of mine 3 years ago asked me to do her boudoir photos. And I was really nervous and really scared and low-key really didn't want to. But she wanted to do it for her husband who was overseas. So I was like, you know what, let's do it. Let's have fun. We'll see how it goes. And literally it lit a spark. That was like December 15th of 2015. And by January 1st, I had completely dropped everything else, changed my whole business plan and website, everything. It just was that quick.
I love that. That's amazing. I feel like people, we talk about this a lot on this podcast of just like the idea of niching down. And I think people hear niche and they think it's like small and they think it's something that's like not successful, but like you're an expert at boudoir and it's something you do all the time now. Like, I mean, I watch your stories, right? So it's like you might have a few shoots a week, and similar to a high-end wedding photographer, it's like we're doing this often. Like we experience, there's not a lot of surprises. We are making this happen, and where I always say that like value follows like intentionality and niche, and so it's like the more specialized you are, the higher you can charge, and the more fun you can have. And it seems like from your stories, you're able to kind of like carve out your life, or at least your daily schedule kind of the way you want to, which is really, really cool.
Yes, that was definitely important to me. I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and I really wanted to do something for me, and that brought value and income to my family. First and foremost, I wanted to contribute, and I said, self, how can I do this? Like, how can I make a business that is profitable for me and for my family? Because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom first, and that's what I do focus on. And I built a business around my schedule and what works for me. And just like anything else, if somebody wants something and wants the service that you're providing, they're going to make it work around their schedule. So I do my sessions Monday through Fridays from 10 a.m. to about 2 at the latest when my kids are in school. If my kids are home, I don't schedule sessions if they're off, if they have half days. I kind of make my schedule, my calendar work for my lifestyle.
I love that. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, is there something that, when you said you used to shoot everything for boudoir, was there ever something you shot that you didn't like or that you like hated and you were like, all right, I'm never doing this again?
They're fucking terrible. I don't know how you guys do it. It is the most stressful, the longest day. You have to micromanage 8,700 people, mother-in-law, no offense, but
I love it.
The most nerve-wracking, terrifying thing. And I only took on small weddings. So when I started my business or started really getting into photography, I was in Tennessee. So it was like this little tiny like Bible thumping town, which is so not me. I was like a fish out of water, but I was like, you know what? If I am going to do weddings, it's going to be like 50 people or less. It's going to be outdoors because I never use flash, never have. I'm all natural light. So I'm like, it's going to have to be outdoors. So I took on very, very few weddings. I can probably count on one hand how many weddings I did. Like I would second shoot all day long. I loved second shooting because I would take all the detail shots and I didn't have that stress of being the main photographer and having to get all of the poses and dealing with the people. I was just in the background kind of doing my own thing. But weddings, I mean, you're a special person. I can't. It's too the first kiss and then you're in the weddings. I mean, I could literally go on and on and on how I would never shoot a wedding ever again.
I love it. That was not what I was expecting, and that is hilarious. I'm so glad I asked.
Ask any other boudoir photographer too. It's like, it's like torture. My best friend, he used to shoot weddings all the time, and then when he found boudoir, he's like, I don't know how I used to shoot weddings like that. It's so nice dealing with one person, one adult who's listening, who's coming for you for a beautiful experience, and they're trusting that you take control and you take the reins. They're not like, I want this and this and this and this. They're
Yeah.
coming to you because they're like, I love your photos. I want that. Make me look like that. And I'm like, all right, girl, as long as you can follow directions, we can do this. So
Yeah. I love that. I love that. One of the things I love like very well crafted Instagram bios, and you have one of those. I think it's really good. But one of the things you said as a boudoir photographer too is you say, I turn 10s into 20s. And I just love that one because it's just a cool, sassy line. But then two, it's like trying to empower people. Like boudoir is not just about, I don't know, I feel like just body and nudity and stuff like that. It's about a bigger purpose, which is really cool. And I love that. It's like just trying to make people feel good.
yes, it is. And I think everybody is a 10. Do you know what I mean? Everybody has their own type of beauty, and everybody has a confidence, whether they get it before they see me or after they see me. I think as long as I can see the beauty in other people, then I'm doing my job right, because I can capture that beauty and show you, like, even though you may feel like a troll most days of the week and you're in yoga pants and a mom bun, you don't usually wear makeup, or you may not feel pretty. Anybody can be pretty. It's all about confidence and believing in yourself, that you are. So I'm luckily able to see that in everybody. So some people are like, oh, you can't make me look like that, or I would never be able to do that. And I'm like, you really could. You're just stopping yourself from doing that. And I'm just kind of that little avenue to take you from maybe not feeling so great about yourself to feeling great about yourself, even if it's just for that one day.
I love that. It's funny. One of the things, and I think we have a lot of similarities in addition to our last names being Mason and not being related as far as we know, is, one of our company's like brand values that I found just doing weddings and stuff like that is, like you said, like people are nervous and they're scared. And one of our, literally, like it's in our official like mission statement is our goal is to eliminate fear. Like, because when people don't have fear, they're more empowered, they're more themselves, and those images are 10 times better than somebody who's trying to fake something. And I think it applies to boudoir as well, and definitely something you do super well. One of the things too is like how I feel like it's gotten better the past few years, and I have a different perspective, right? Because I'm just a guy, I'm single, not single anymore, but as somebody tried to ask on Instagram.
Did you see that question?
Yeah. I was so flattered. I immediately texted my wife and I was like, look, babe, I'm a catch. No.
Yeah, you really are. You're adorable.
She's like, you're ridiculous. And so it's just really funny because, again, I'm like the guy equivalent of that mom bun and yoga pants at home. So one of the things just with boudoir and stuff like that, I feel like, and the internet's helped a lot of things become less taboo, but did you ever experience, especially coming from Tennessee and now you live in Virginia, is like, did you ever experience any just awkward comments or backlash from the stuff you tried to shoot, or have any of the people you photographed gotten weird backlash? I have a few friends that have, and so I was just curious about that with you.
Not really said to me personally, and if it did, I probably wasn't paying attention. But I do have some clients that have come back to me and said, hey, this situation came up. Is there any way where my images cannot be on your blog or on your website or something like that? And absolutely, any photo that you see online, I was given permission to share. So I give all of my clients 3 options to share their images if they want them online at all. So if you see anybody with where their face is in the image, you can see who they are. They've given me full release to share their images. If you see a lot of detail shots, maybe just a butt shot or a lingerie shot or something up close where their head or face isn't in there, they've allowed me to share their images through a partial release. And then there's many, many people that have had a session. You won't know they had a session because they didn't want any of their photos on there. So I do give everybody the choice because I understand whether it's personal reasons or work related, or if they have some type of clearancy or something like that where they can't have their images shown. They definitely have the choice, and I'll obviously take them down if any situation comes up. So.
Right. It's a very DC thing. It's like we have wedding couples as well. And I've realized this, like celebrities and politicians and, people who work for the government oftentimes can't or don't feel comfortable like having their stuff online. And it's just one of those things you plan for, and every company has a different policy on it. And I imagine, especially with the sensitive nature of boudoir and, and too, I feel like kind of the original story you mentioned where it was like a gift for the husband or a gift for the spouse, you know, it's for, you know, one set of eyes essentially and stuff like that. How do you get kind of I'm trying to think about the best way to phrase this, but you know, like I'm stumbling. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like like how can people who want to do boudoir, you know, get into it if they don't shoot it, and how can they like fight that the awkwardness or the stigma or whatever? Because I feel like you do this every day, so it's like maybe there isn't one, right? And you know, for people who are nervous about weddings, well, I've done this 200 times. I don't feel nervous going into a wedding day at all. But it's like, how do we fight that stigma? And I know even you'll mention that sometimes you post photos on Instagram and they'll like get banned or cut or some kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I kind of know that I'm pushing the limit on that one. I kind of see if I can let it slide on certain images. But, you know, with the crackdown on Facebook and Instagram and their limitations on what you can show, I know, and like counting my numbers when I post a certain photo. But I think with like the whole limitation, I really don't think there are limitations unless you set them onto yourself. A lot of people are like, well, what if this and what if that? And I live in a small town and my town is this, that, and the other, or clients won't pay that, or people won't come to my house and get half naked. I'm like, well, then you're putting your own limitations up and your own barriers up. And if you're negative all the time and you try and put all of these what if situations in front of you, you're never going to get to that goal. Because again, I started in a very small town of 8,000 people, Bible thumping, and just because somebody is into their faith and into church or whatever, doesn't mean they don't get down. You know what I mean? So I don't understand why people may think that. Maybe maybe different generations or traditions don't find it acceptable, but those aren't my clients and those aren't the people that I'm marketing to. I'm marketing and sharing this experience with people that want to have this experience and want to either feel better about themselves or do something as a gift for their husband, because there's so many different reasons why you can do boudoir. So I really don't think there are any limitations on starting a boudoir business or being interested in boudoir. You just have to do it. And if you want it, just start learning about it, reaching out to people that already do it and asking for maybe tips and tricks on how to get something going. But I really think that a lot of people don't succeed or get to where they want to go just because of their own personal thoughts. That's what stops a lot of people's their fear about what could happen when you just kind of have to do it. And if there are repercussions afterwards, you just deal with those later. That's what I do it, at least.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, even just having that limited mentality that you mentioned, it's people in the wedding industry, they're like, oh, I can never charge $10K for a wedding. And it's like, well, then you're probably not going to. But there are people charging $20K every single day and making it happen. Yeah. And you're sleeping on them. And, you know, it's of course, they're not your client. And I think, too, even, you know, I'm not sure if it applies to boudoir, but for weddings, I quickly learned that most of the time, I am not my client anymore. It used to be when I first started, right? You know, your book friends and family, but I don't spend $12K on wedding photography. Like our wedding photographer was more expensive than our venue because of our values, but literally we still didn't have that kind of cash flow, but that's okay. Like that's not my client. And, you know, Starbucks, you know, Howard Schultz and I do not have a lot in common.
I think that's very important about the whole you're not your client. Same, you know, would I go spend $3,000 on photos of myself? Probably not. Maybe now I would, now that I understand it a little bit more. But sure. There's somebody out there for everybody. And just like weddings, everybody has a budget and everybody has certain expectations on what they want for their special day. If you want a $300 wedding photographer, don't boo-hoo because half your weddings photos are blurry. Just like in boudoir, if you want a $300 boudoir photographer, don't be mad because you look a mess. So you really have to do your research just like anything else. Find the photographer that you vibe with. Find one whose images that you love and whose style that you love. And you budget for that. There's a budget. Everybody has a budget. And I think if you're offering payment plans or you're offering different avenues to where people can get your service without paying the whole lump sum. Because I don't know about you, who has $12,000 laid around to just be like, oh, here you go. But weddings specifically, people do budget for their weddings. And a lot of times they put that value into something else when they really should be putting it into their photos. Because let's be honest, if you're spending more money on your food that somebody's shooting out the next day, and then you don't put money into your photos, which lasts a lifetime, like there's a disconnect there. So
I love that. Get feisty up in here. Get feisty.
Well, people also have to understand that photography is not a need, it's a want. So just like anything else, just like Starbucks, just like Taco Bell, just like going out to eat, it's something that you have to have wiggle room for. If you can't afford Starbucks 5 days a week, then you're not going to Starbucks. You're making your shit at home. So it really is, if somebody wants you and they want that experience, they're gonna make it happen. I've had plenty of clients come up in here and say, oh, I'm struggling financially, this, that, and the other. And then they come into the reveal and they pick my top package paid in full. People will pay for and budget for the things that they are important for them. So if you're putting value into yourself, then that gets reflected back onto your clients. And when they also see that, that is where you find your ideal client. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like one of the things too, we talked about this before because I shot my first boudoir session and
yes, it's so good.
I appreciate that. I was so nervous and for folks listening, like we basically walked through the process. The bride asked me, and I've been asked by tons of brides over the past few years, and I normally would just refer it out, right? Hey, go to Karla. Hey, go to Lauren. Hey, go to this. And most of the time is never an issue, mostly because it's something that, one, I felt awkward about. Two, I didn't want to approach it. I didn't want to touch it or anything like that. And then over the past few years, I saw a different side of it, that it wasn't just like this, just being like, it wasn't porn. Like it wasn't this kind of like weird thing. It was about making people feel good. It was about not having shame. It was about eliminating fear. And I was like, I can get behind those things. Like those things are awesome. And so for me, and I had this bride ask, and her fiance was even there. Where it was after their engagement session, and she was talking to me about it, and I was like, hey, I normally refer it out, and she was like, no, but I'd really love to have you do it. I love your style, and they had just gotten done their engagement session. They were like, that was so fun, so I feel like it would be the same, and I was like, all right, well, let me talk to my wife, whatever. And I've never actually told this story publicly, so this is really funny. I talked to my wife about it because I was just like, I wasn't sure. And I was like, how does this work? And, I want to make sure that my wife is cool with it, right? And my wife is like hardcore feminist. And so I went to ask her and I'm like, I don't know. So can we talk about this? And she was like, Adam, and she cursed at me. She was like, that's your effing job.
Yeah.
Go do that. Like, oh, you want to make somebody feel empowered and free and shameless and eliminate fear in somebody's life and make somebody else's day. You're going to make a gift for her husband who you like and you think he's cool. Like, that's your job. And she's like, Adam, there's something about shooting something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Just going back to the strictly photography standpoint, like you need to explore why and figure that out. And so I did a ton of research. This story is way too long already. I did a ton of research, and I went to a workshop in November in New York, and one of the classes was a boudoir one. And so I went, and I was the only guy, and I was nervous, and I asked all these, dumb questions. I'd never done a session before, and I wasn't really sure I was going to do one. But I asked the teacher. She was really cool. And I just did a ton of research, and we've even had another boudoir photographer on named Keith Lee. So I asked him a bunch of questions, and he gave a bunch of practical tips, which if we could talk about on here too. But one of the things he was like, always have somebody in the room with you, like an additional person, at least for him, because he was like, I want it to be above reproach. I want it to be fun. I want it to be a cool environment. I never want it to be weird. And I was like, yeah. And so he also told us too, he was like, I never touch anything. He's like, I always communicate. And he was like, my wife is there because she does makeup, which I was like, oh, that's a really cool connection. My wife does not do makeup, even on herself. Oftentimes she's all natural. And so, so I knew kind of going in what I was hoping to do, and then I had a plan. And so going in, I was a little bit nervous. The first 10 minutes, I was like, oh, okay. But then I got into it, and I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is what we want. Okay. Like, I had learned so much at the one class. And after we shot it, the bride, she was like, Adam, I feel so freaking awesome. She was like, I feel so empowered. Like I could do that 100 times. And I was like, yeah, like I could do that. Like that was so cool. And it wasn't weird. And like, I showed my wife the photos. I showed, you and some of the people I respect the photos. And I was just like, hey, is this cool? What does this look like? Does this look dumb? And it was so cool. And the bride was like super pumped about it. And I was like, I don't know if I'll ever do this again, but I'm glad that I dove into this and we wanted to see what it was about. And it was just really cool. And I think too is like being able to make somebody feel empowered with photos. Like we've all had those times when we've taken photos and we've shown it to somebody and they're like, yeah, this looks amazing. Mm-hmm. And then we've had times when we show it to somebody and you can see their cringe and you're like, oh crap. And so, we want like having that feeling though, when you made somebody's day is obviously the best. So sorry, that was a long rant, but I want to ask you, like, what are some of the things you've learned now that you've done Boudoir for 3 years, and we'll eventually get to kind of the sales part of it, but just the practicality of like shooting it. You do it at home, I know you said, and you do primarily natural light. And what are some of the things you've learned through that process, whether just through talking with people or things you didn't do 3 years ago that now you're like, okay, this is something we do every session. Whether it's like, hey, make sure you don't do 100% spray tan or any kind of weird tips like that.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously, like you said, fear in anything that we do for the first time. And my fear was not liking their photos, which a lot of photographers feel no matter what they do. You want somebody to love the images that you're creating because it's your artwork, it's your style. And if you're truly passionate about it, I always have that fear. I'm always so nervous before people see their images. And it's just a natural fear that we have because I never wanted, and I've seen so many people, well, not so many, but I've seen some people have negative reactions when they have their boudoir images done because the person didn't know what they were doing. So they didn't make them feel confident and they didn't make them feel comfortable. And so that was always a goal of mine, is to like, how can I make somebody feel comfortable around me? Because it is like a very vulnerable thing. So in the beginning, just getting all of those, trying to push all of those fears that I had aside and just like, look, this is why she's coming to you. She loves your photos. Just pose her in the best way and give her the best experience that works for her and for her body and for her why and for her story on why she's doing it. So it was a lot of trial and error. Maybe I'll do this pose. I won't do this pose next time because it wasn't the most flattering or things like that. But I think as long as you go into anything with an open mind and willingness to try things, anybody can be good at what they do. And as long as you're passionate about it and you have a goal in mind, it just becomes easier and easier the more that you do it. So my style has changed a little bit. Like I said, I've always used natural light, and that is always just a fun challenge for me because not every lighting situation is the same. So if I have light coming in to my room in a certain corner, I'm like, oh girl, let's go over here. The light's coming in. Like, I'm going to blind you for just a minute. Cause I love when light comes in on somebody, like, and brings out their eyes, or if it features something about their body that they love. So it's just challenging for me every single time because, again, everybody is different and I can't pose everybody the same, even though there are some go-to poses that I go to for most people. I really like to play around and get creative with each person so I can create something a little bit different and unique for that person, because I feel like that's why they're coming to me. They want what I'm offering, they want my style, and they want me to make them feel comfortable, because there's something so valuable about having an image of yourself that you love. There's nothing, I mean, even just having my headshot photos done, and I was like, dang, okay, I don't look as bad as maybe I thought that I did in my head, because a lot of times we do think about ourselves a little bit in a negative way because of things that we've gone through in our own life. But having a professional capture you in a way that's you, and that you feel beautiful in, is really something special. So that is what drives me to make my experience positive for every person that comes to me.
I love that. Is there some other things that it sounds like, did you always do in-person sales? Because it sounds like you do like a session fee and then you do like kind of a reveal. I don't know if that happens like a week or two or four later.
Yeah, I do have a booking fee. So anybody that wants to get onto my calendar, if I'm marking time out of my day and also getting my hair and makeup person's schedule, there is a booking fee. Obviously, I think if you're putting anybody onto your calendar, you need to have some kind of booking fee or deposit or retainer or whatever you want to call it, because we're a legit business. Like, our time is valuable. And if you're, having somebody commit and you're taking out your time and they don't show up because they haven't put any money down, that's happened before in the beginning. Like I said, when I didn't really have a concrete business plan in place. If people don't invest in you from the jump, they're not going to value you to show up to the actual session. So a lot of people say, oh, I got stood up. I'm like, how? Did somebody walk away from $300, $500? What's your booking process look like? How did somebody not show up to your session? So booking fee for me is really important. And then obviously all your prints and products are sold separately at their viewing session, which takes place anywhere from 4 to 7 days after their session takes place. So they basically call me, book me, I get on the calendar, they show up to their session, they don't have to worry about anything else until they see their images for the first time. So, and then once they see their images and pick their favorites, then we can pick products from there. So I just personally love physical products. I mean, obviously I have digitals because I understand it's a digital world. But there's just something about seeing your images on print and having something to hold, like have an heirloom product to keep for yourself or give as a gift. That is just what I personally like. There's a lot of people that do their business and just sell digitals. But for me, I just like seeing it in print. So that is something that I offer.
Right. No, I love that. I think the main thing, is a lot of photographers, especially wedding photographers, we don't do in-person sales, or some of them do, but a lot of us don't. And so I'm curious, have you always done in-person sales? And then,
no.
Yeah. Have you found that it's been really helpful? Like, what's that process like? Or do you think people know before they even book their session that they know they're going to have a second time when they can kind of go over products and stuff with you? And then, how do you position a lot of those things? Versus an album, I feel like is a little bit easier to sell. Maybe, I don't know. But, do you sell high-res digitals as well? Or like, how does that all work? I'm just curious because I don't do in-person sales.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't either. And of course, and there's a lot of photographers out there, and it's fine that they're like $200 for a session and you get X amount of digitals. But a lot of times they'll send their digitals and they're like, well, did they like them? They didn't respond. They didn't tell me if they even received their images. Are they happy with them? Are they talking shit about me? I mean, did they like 5 out of 25 images? Like, there's always was that fear when I was just a one price, one stop shop, whether or not people enjoyed their images or not. So there's also that excitement on seeing the person's face and seeing their reaction on how they truly feel about their images. So obviously with weddings and events, it's a little bit different because you are like pumping out all of these images from every aspect of their day. You're really storytelling their wedding from start to finish. So there's little bits about it that you need to include. So, digitals for a wedding, I think, it's fine. But I mean, have you ever sent out your wedding and then you don't really hear from them and you're like, holy shit, did they even enjoy them? Like, that is what I didn't want, especially from Boudoir. So, I always do in-person consultations or phone consultations. Phone consultations for me are huge. And that's where I talk about everything. I talk about the booking process. I talk about how everything is going to go from beginning to end. I talk about the reveal session. I talk about the products and the pricing that I have to offer. And I kind of go from there because I want to know about them just as much as they want to get to know me. So I think obviously if I'm having people come over to get half naked at my house, they at least want to have a conversation with me or a drink or something. So it is very nerve-wracking and very intimidating. So I want to talk to you. I want you to feel comfortable coming over to me. And if I'm just sending you a pamphlet of information and you're just scrolling down to the price, I'm not here for price shoppers. I'm here for people that really value me and want this experience and want to be taken care of from the moment they step into my door to the moment they leave with their product. So I get everybody on the phone, or I invite them over to meet me in person, see where I shoot, because like you said, I do shoot out of my home. So I want them to know, like, I'm not some creepy guy in my basement, like I'm a real person. And I think that's why social media is so important to me, because again, I want you to come over and get naked. So I want you to at least know my face and hear my voice and realize that I'm a real person who's passionate about what I do. So I've noticed big time from going to a one-stop shop to in-person sales and really educating my client on how the process is going to go has really upped my booking process and really boomed my sales, because when I was a one-stop shop, I really didn't know how to price myself, and I really didn't know what it meant to be a profiting business. So once again, I educated myself on the business side of things. I started making goals. Well, how much do I want to make from each client, and how much do I need to make from each client to be a profitable business? Because why are you in business if you're not profiting? It doesn't make any sense, you know?
We love profit here. We're big fans. Every time I talk about profitability, I feel like it's this very boring word that a lot of newer folks don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, listen, y'all, you're not listening now, or you skipped the episode, but you're going to email me in like a year or two when you're not making any money and you're in debt and you've not been paying attention to any of this stuff. And it's like, guys, you got to make some money. You're like,
exactly.
you have to.
I'm big on, profiting for me, and I do, and I can educate others on how to profit for their business, because every business is different. Everybody's cost of good is different. Everybody's cost of business is different. And so my thing is, like, what are your goals, yearly goals or monthly goals? Like, numbers don't lie. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if somebody's charging $200 or less, all inclusive for a session, I know for a mother flipping fact that you are not making anything. And right. I see those people and I don't pay attention to them, but inside I'm like, you're literally doing this for nothing. And I'm not a charity, or I'm not like a volunteer. Like, this is not a hobby. Like, this is for me to be a business, but also provide a service that is valuable to other people. So it really just depends on what your business goals are financially. And a lot of people don't want to charge certain amounts because, again, it all goes back to fear. They fear that people won't pay that money for them, or they fear that people won't think that their images are worth that price. But I just say, fuck it. If you need to be a certain price photographer, make that price for yourself, but don't do it because you're basing your prices on what you think people can afford. Like, I would never, no, I don't make my price based off what I think people can purchase. I know people will come to me if they find value in me. So that is what I focus on.
Dang, just dropped it right there. I love it. So I always want to know, well, first, do you use kind of any like client management system, Tave or Honeybook or anything like that?
No, girl, I am so old school. I like writing emails like just organically. I think a lot of, think about it. Like, you write me and you're like, hey, I would really love this boudoir experience. And then you ask me like 2 or 3 questions and you send it to me, and then boom, you get this generic thing back. That really doesn't seem personal to me, especially if you're just like, boom, here's all the information that you need to know. Maybe some people like it that way, but I want to be like, hey girl, I want to talk in my voice. I want to answer the questions that you ask, and I want to get you on the phone so that we can talk about your fears and your concerns and see if I'm a good fit for you. So I write every single person every email, every DM, everything as they come. I have a binder system, like I'm taking it back, but I have a binder system for my clients. And I have a binder system for my business. So everything that comes into my business, everything that I spend for my business, I have it printed and I have it physically written down. Drives my husband crazy because his brain totally works in a different way. But this is a way for me to have control and organization in my business. I don't trust a client management system. I don't want to sit down and take the time to set one up. And again, I'm all things free and cheap. And for me, it's working. It doesn't cost me a thing. I sit down one day at the end of the month. So for February 1st, I sit down and I write down everything or organize everything that I did in January and so on. So I just prefer it that way, but that's just the way that my brain works. So I just do everything organically. If I miss a phone call or I miss an email or I looked over it, that's on me. I don't blame it on something else. Oh, sorry, that was my client management system. Sorry, I didn't see it. My email's down. Like, no, be honest. Just say, oh, sorry, shit, I forgot to call you. Like, let me call you right back, you know? I just like, and again, I'm not like so swamped to where I'm getting like 50 to 100 emails a day. That's not the case. I just take care of things as they come in. Totally.
Mm-hmm. Now, does that mean too, like payments and calendar stuff, you're just all manual essentially?
Yeah, I got a calendar with a pencil. I literally put you in all my payments, everything like that. I do take payments. You know, I do use like PayPal and Square and things like that. But everything is done by hand. I don't know if it's a control thing or I just don't want to take another step to put it into a software. I don't know what it is, honestly. I think it's lazy and I don't want to set it up until I have. Okay, so I've done a lot of free trials with client management softwares and it's just too overwhelming. And I just don't want to. So I'm very much like, if it's working, like, let's keep it going. And again, it doesn't take me a lot of time to do it the way that I'm doing. So I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything.
Totally. And I mean, you know, for me, until 3.5 years ago or so, I did everything manually as well. I used like basically Dropbox. Like everybody had a client folder, which is very similar to kind of how designers work essentially. Like it's just a project based on the date, and then all the client stuff goes in there, contracts, you know, photos of checks, etc. And it was easy until I had to do a little bit a change because of high volume work. No, that's super cool. And that's also, like we talked about, that is most of the time it is profitable because you're not spending any money on, you know, that client management system too. So, that makes sense. Is there something, I always love asking people this, is there something you see in boudoir or photography in general that you wish was different, you know, or you see people doing? I mean, it sounds obviously people not charging enough, but I feel like that's universal. Where like, guys, like, one, be awesome, and then two, charge for being awesome. But is there anything in the boudoir world specifically that you see people doing, and you're just like, guys, please don't do that?
Oh man, I think staying off of Pinterest. Would be one of my things that's really annoying. And a lot of clients, they don't know. Okay. And a lot of photographers, they don't know. And not that Pinterest is bad, because that's where I went in the beginning to be like, well, what kind of images mean boudoir? You know, I didn't even know how to freaking spell it when I first started. So I was like, but a lot of times when photographers and even clients, they go to look at other people's images to get ideas on what they're wanting for their session. A lot of it is very cheesy, and a lot of it is not flattering for their figure. So they're like, I want to come in and do this pose. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, that's not going to work. Or it's not going to look good and you're not going to feel good. So it's such a hard one, but I think it's so important to just find your style and what you like, and stay away from looking at other things that could like distract you from that. And I always tell people that come to me when they're interested in starting Boudoir, I'm like, don't, like, keep your blinders on, like, don't look anywhere else. Because Pinterest and things like that have a lot of really cheesy things on there that is just not something that I'm wanting to do. So I think it's really important, like obviously with photography, is to find your own style and find things in photos, like what attracted you to it, what do you like about it, and how can you create that for your client, and just don't look anywhere else. Just keep your mind on that. So that would be the only thing besides the whole pricing thing, because that really gets on my nerves when I see actual like good people charging for so cheap. And I'm like, why? But nope, it's not my business. I got to stay over here in my own lane. That is frustrating. It can be frustrating too, but just like anything else, if you're in somebody else's business, you're not taking time to be in your own. And that's where a lot of people fail.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I literally basically started this podcast so that I could just have, I could say whatever I wanted about other people's businesses.
Yeah.
But in hopefully a helpful way, right?
Like down the street, did you see her wedding photos? No.
Yeah, exactly. There's a phrase I think I've heard, and it's like, I'm pretty sure it's from the Bible, ironically. It's like, no one's an expert in their hometown. And so it's one of those things where, you DM somebody and you're like, hey, I've been watching what you're doing. How does this work for you? Does that really work? Or, even my mentees that come to me, we're doing their profitability right now. Mm-hmm. And most of the time people do their first analysis of profitability based on like what they want to make and how much they're currently making. It seldom looks good. Mm-hmm. Like most of the time it does not, unless, I did mine really late and eventually I had a growth mindset. So it was a little bit easier to take on, but people don't realize a lot of the things we're messing up, right? And I think that's why I wanted to make a resource like this. Speaking of resources, you should do like a Boudoir specific in-person sales, course or something like that. I think you could kill it.
I'm really terrible at sales. Like, it's not that I selling anything. Like, the photos kind of sell themselves, and your experience is what sells your products. And so I'm not really selling, I guess. I'm just like, here's what I have to offer. And if you need help going in a certain direction or deciding what products might be right for you, I'm here. But I've never been like salesy. Do you know what I mean? And I think like when I teach a lot of people, it's really hard. Like someone's like, well, I need a lot of help on editing. And I'm like, okay, well, how are you getting people in the door? How can you edit photos if you don't have any bookings, if you don't have people to photograph? And then do you know your camera? Like, how do your RAWs look? Like, how are your images turning out? Because if you want your images to look like mine, they never will, because we'll never shoot the same. But it's like, what are the steps to get to the editing part? Like, are you doing everything, all the steps to get to the editing part correctly? Because if you're not, I can't really help you on that. Like I can tell you exactly what actions I use. I can give you my settings. I can show you exactly how I edit a photo from start to finish, but your photo will never look like mine because your eye is not the same as mine. Not that you couldn't try or whatever, but I'm really big on like how there's so many steps in your business and so many steps to getting to the final product. You have to make sure all your little ducks are in a row. So when I teach people, I'm like, we need to set your business up for success. It's not just editing. It's not just taking the photo, and it's not just booking clients. It's so much more than that. So, yeah, I'm rambling.
That's all right. We welcome rambling. No, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, if it's working for you, and maybe we have to do a profitability analysis of Karla Mason.
Yeah, right.
If it's working, I'm always like, you should tell more people how to do it. I'm a big fan of that. Just the number one thing I always tell people when I have people even on this podcast is like, I strictly try to have people on that I think are like an expert at kind of one niche thing. Like obviously I have you as an expert in boudoir, but hey, maybe it's like in-person sales and kind of like helping people feel empowered. And so it's good. I think I'm a big fan of like everybody has an expertise and has something to sell and has something to like share with the world, if you will. That's in addition to what you're actually already doing. Last kind of question. I want to know, what's next for you? I'm always very futuristic mindset, and it gets me in trouble because sometimes I ask people this and they're like, Adam, I'm very content right now. Like things are going great. But is there anything, in the next few years that you want to change about your business, or do you want to grow? Like, what does that look like? Or just things that you're really excited about and happening soon?
No, I don't have a futuristic mind. So I'm very much, things are going well. If something happens, then I will address it as it comes. But I never had like a goal of having X amount of employees or assistant photographers or moving from my home to a giant studio. Those were never goals of mine. When I started and I was shooting out of my dining room on an air mattress and my office was literally my dining room table, I would have to move my dining room table out and I would have to move my computer and everything out. When we moved, I was like, I just want an office and I want an extra room where I can photograph people in. And I want to be able to work from home because being a mom is first for me. So I want to be able to still work from home, do what I love, and be there for my family. Not that I'm an introvert and I want to be home all the time because I'm like completely opposite. But I never wanted to have to travel somewhere, go out to work and sit in traffic and all of that crap. So basically everything that I wanted, I have right now. So for me, it's just maintaining what I have. Design wise, like in my house and the way that I set up my studio, things, have changed and probably will change. I always add things or add a plant or add a mirror or add a couch or whatever it is. But when I started, I had just literally a bed and a wall. Then I added a chair and now I have a loft area. So as long as I can provide a variety of images for people and still give them a really good experience, like that is what my goal is. So if I ever feel like something is lacking or something's not working, then I tweak my business from there. But I'm kind of like on a maintenance mode right now. Like I'm just kind of maintaining things as they go. When I first started, I was a hot mess. I changed my prices weekly. I changed my business plan all the time. I changed how I booked people. I did do emails. It was more comfortable for me to send my information and then just kind of sit back and hope that they booked. And then when I found that wasn't working and it wasn't making me feel good, then I was like, okay, well, I need to change something. So I'm very big on if something's not working, it's because of me. It's not because of anybody else. And I think a lot of people put a lot of blame on other people on why something isn't working. So, and I think it's big that if something's not working in your business, it's because of you, because who else is running your business? Nobody. Like, it's just you. So I just like to, if things are working, I kind of gravitate towards that way. And why is it working? What am I doing that's working or speaking to my clients? And for me right now, it's just maintaining my marketing, my social media presence, and just creating good quality images. It's like a lot of times I felt like I was lacking. And maybe in the wedding industry, it's a little bit different, but maybe you have some go-to poses or things that you do to get those certain images. And I felt like it was almost becoming like repetitive to me. I was doing the same thing over and over again with each client. And even though it was fun for them, I was getting a little bored, but it wasn't because of my clients. It was because of me. So I'm like, what can I do differently? Okay, instead of starting on the bed every single time, let's start on the wall. Let's start in the loft. Let's start on the couch. Let's not start in a t-shirt. Let's start straight into lingerie. So to keep me excited and to keep me interested in what I was doing, because it can get a little bit like Groundhog Day in here, I just switched things up and so it doesn't become stale. So long answer to your question.
Those are the best answers.
It's not anything really long term. not that I'm comfortable where I'm at, but I'm content with where I'm at right now. And there's always room for growth. And I'm sure that I will grow in the future. But for right now, like, everything's going good. Like, I'm happy. I got a good little system going on here, a good little workflow. And I think that's, what important too. Like, if you have the means to have help and get help in the areas of your life to where you need help, that's really important too. So I brought on somebody to help me edit a year ago. So that has been really helpful. A house cleaner, which is really helpful because even though I work at home, the laundry isn't going to fold itself. And a lot of my time is spent either shooting or in the office. So I'm not afraid to ask for help in areas where I need help in my life. So, kind of delegating that work out to other people when you can is super helpful. I don't like to be stressed. I'm very chill. So some people are like, I got to do 7 sessions a week. I have to do, this amount of people. Like, I'm not, that would stress me out. I don't like to do 4 sessions a week is like overload for me. That stresses me out. It's too much. So I say, how many sessions can I do a month comfortably to where I meet my financial goals? And that's kind of where I sit, because I'm not like a revolving door. I'm not here to have, to show off for anybody else. I'm only showing off to my own self and to my clients because I want them to be happy in the end. I'm not doing it to impress anybody else. Believe me. So
I love it. That's perfect. No, that's awesome. It's I think I get in trouble, like we talked about before, is maybe I'm just not content all the time. And so I'm always like, we could get bigger, or what do we want to do? And I'm also, I feel like we're rambling towards the end of this, but it's one of those things where because I have so much control of what's happening in my life, I have this optimistic kind of like, well, why not? Let's just try this, or hey, let's just go for it. And so it just leads to, lots of fun ideas and things like that. So I always like asking other people, just like, hey, what's on your radar or whatever. And most of the time they give me a very mature answer like you did. And they're like, no, things are good now. Like, this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, holy crap, we're here. They showed us the holy water. Should we drink it? Why not?
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. I think, with the wedding industry, or just, being a photographer in general, it's like when you become in control of your own work and your own business, it's exciting to see where it can go. Well, when I started, and my album was like $500, and I was so scared shitless of that price. I was like, who the hell is going to pay $500 for an album? And then somebody did that. Literally the next day, I changed my pricing from $500 to $700. I was like, well, let's see who will pay $700. And then when somebody purchased it for $700, then I just kept going up and up and up. And it's not that I was being greedy, but I was like, oh my God, people are finding value in me and what I do when I didn't even see it in myself. So where can I take my business financially? Like, how far can I take it to where I'm happy and I'm sustaining, again, a profitable business? So you want to charge $10,000, guess what? You're going to find a $10,000 client because they're going to find the value in you. And if you have a good system going on and you have a good reputation, people are going to be drawn to that. So you really, you have the ability to make as much money and to take your business wherever you want to go because you're in full control of that. So some people are more timid. They're like, I'm going to stay right here because this is where I'm comfortable. And that's where I started. And then it's like, well, now I want this and now I want this. And so you just kind of build your business up from that. Again, like, I am where I am and I'm happy, but it'll probably change from here until I talk to you maybe in 10 years. But who knows? Like, again, people underestimate how amazing it is to own your own business. You don't have to call out for work. You don't have to make an excuse on why you can't come in that day or why you can't do X, Y, and Z. You really can make your business however you want it to be.
Right, 100%. There it is. I love it. Karla, I'm going to stop this here before we just talk forever and take up your whole day. Where can people go to find you? I know you love Instagram, and you already passed me. We're both trying to get to 10K. So this
So goals. Okay, so that is just a little thing. I don't really care about the numbers. Like I said, I've been on Instagram stories and saying, like, I'm not a numbers person. But, you know, I want the swipe up feature. Like, I feel like it would just be one of those tools for my business that would just make it easier for people to find my information, or for me to share information with other people. Because think about it, like, I'll post something. I'm very big about putting content out there that's valuable for clients and for business people. But I'm like, oh, I love this piece of lingerie, blah, blah, blah. If I had to swipe up so where you could literally go to purchase it, instead of having to answer 8,700 DMs about where I find it and copying and pasting the link to individual people, like, that to me is just a tool that I want for my business. So that's a little goal that I have right now, is to get to 10,000 people, so I can have that swipe up feature to make certain things are like, oh, new blog post, swipe up to go read, instead of being like link in bio, because again, everybody's attention span is about 7 seconds or less on the internet. So how are you going to grab their attention within 7 seconds, instead of them being like, oh yeah, let me just take another second and hop over to her page and then go click on the link and then go read the blog. Like, I want to make it easy for people to find me, and to always be out there and in people's faces. So that's my little goal right now. I'm trying to get to 10K. I know it's going to happen, like I said, but, you know, on Instagram, you can find me at Karla Mason Photography, and it's Karla with a K. So Karla Mason Photography on Instagram, as well as my website. It's Karla Mason Photography. If you want to find my boudoir on Facebook, it's Karla Mason Boudoir. If you want to look at all of the old shit that I used to post when I did not boudoir, I'm still Karla Mason Photography on Facebook as well, but all my boudoir stuff is Karla Mason Boudoir. And then for any local ladies or ladies that are interested in having a boudoir experience with me, I have a VIP ladies only group on Facebook, and it's called Karla Mason VIP Boudoir. So you can always ask to go on there. I just don't have other photographers in there because people are nosy AF. So if you're a photographer that wants to have a session with me, or you want more information about me or my business or mentoring or anything like that, you can certainly email me at karlamasonboudoir@gmail.com. I'm really easy to find. If you want to find me, you'll find me. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, I literally found you by accident, and now you're on here and you're friends. Yeah, so yeah, no, exactly. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, Karla, thanks so much for coming on. We'll link your Instagram in the show notes so that hopefully we can have a little Bearded Tog push to help you get to 10K. And thanks so much for everything.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Karla is so much fun. Like I said, it's the first time having another Mason on the podcast, which is really funny. Also, now after this episode, are you just not saying the word boudoir 100 times? Like, I feel like we said it a ton. So good to chat with Karla. Absolutely love her. She's an expert in her field, and I love what she's just so mature, right? Like, she's just like, hey, I'm content. Things are happening right now. Things are good. And don't we all just want to be at that place? I feel like for me, I'm always looking for the next thing, and people in my life, Karla included, and, you know, my wife and other people in my life are always like, hey, things are good now. Like, don't forget, like, the good times are happening right now. So that's such a good thing. If you're interested in boudoir and interested in learning from Karla, she also offers mentorship. But honestly, I just learn a lot that she posts on her Instagram stories. She's very educational. She shares a ton about the process. And the fact that she does in-person sales is so cool, and I think so useful for kind of session-based photography. And so I wanted to have her on just because I know for wedding photographers, that's super different. For product people, that's very different. So definitely reach out to her on Instagram, say hi, tell her that we sent you, and that you listen to the episode. Let me know what you think. If you haven't already, I would love for you to leave a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your reviews and stuff like that. I would love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much. Keep being awesome.